And welcome back, everyone, to the Pokemon Team Creation Series. Today's comes to us from Mission Paul Marshall. Ask the question, what is the Pokemon team of the first Spinjitzu master of Ninjago? I don't do a lot of the Ninjago ones. I've been very clear about how I'm not very into the IP, but I felt, there's enough here for me to do something with. The first Spinjago Master was basically a man of peace. He's half dragon and half Oni, which is going to become very important in a second. And basically, he was a master of multiple elements. He was, he was very, selfless for the people. He's kind of like the stereotypical Grand Master kind of style. Let me center that a bit more. Style kind of like character. So I immediately got some concepts of how to go off of that. Let's start with the first one. I always start with what the partner of this individual would be. The partner would be Kommo-o, but shiny Kommo-o to represent gold, because he's also known for using all 4 of the golden weapons in Ninjago. But beyond that, he's half dragon, so that makes sense that his partner would be a dragon type Pokemon. But you might be saying, well, he's also half Oni. What about that? Well, we'll get to that in just a second. There's also a being that he can use as a vehicle called the Golden Dragon. It is a being. It's not just a vehicle, but it uses it as a vehicle for riding and for combat. So I'm like, okay, what dragon can I use that really works that way? Is there any golden dragons beyond Kommo-o? And then I'm like, well, we have Shiny Altaria. And let me just make that a little bigger for you. Shiny Altaria, that's a gold dragon. So why not? I think right out the gate, this shows us a little bit about this team, that it would make sense that someone who can use the gold, who's so revered, powerful, can use the golden weapons, would have a few more shinies on his team than a normal individual. Now, his entire team is not shinies, because we still have to reference the Oni part. And the Oni part was probably the most difficult thing, because Oni are demons, but I'm not in the Ninjago world. Maybe they're a little different, but Oni are generally speaking demons. They're ogres, they're Kishins, they're devils, they're imps. That's what Onis generally are in Japanese mythology. They're spirits, more or less. So I'm like, okay, ghost or dark has to be that. But now, what exactly would I use? And an Ogerpon I don't count as Oni. I don't think that works. That being said, in hindsight, maybe it could have, but I don't like that because Ogerpon is an ogre. Ogres are Oni in Japan, but ogres are not necessarily Onis everywhere else in the world. And yes, Kitakami is Japan-based, so in hindsight, you could probably swap this next mon out with Ogerpon, and that could probably work. But regardless, and I mean, the masks also work for the golden weapons. I'm not going to change what I did on the grounds that it would really cause a balance shift here in terms of how well this character would be able to handle the gyms. Although it really wouldn't change much. Okay, I'll show you what I did first, and then I'll switch it over to Ogerpon. I went with Weavile. Weavile isn't really an Oni, but it is a dark type, and it definitely has a sort of sinister Oni vibe to it. A little bit of a trickster spirit, malevolent. And being an ice type is important because the 4 main essential elements in Ninjago are, I believe, fire, lightning, ice, and, oh crap, I'm missing the other one. Earth. Earth, that was it. So, that was all kind of just luck, but honestly, the more I'm thinking about it, and the fact that he's not evil, just like Ogerpon isn't evil, the more I let's try ogre. There we go, ogre. I was misspelling ogre. Ogerpon. There we go. Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I would probably actually change it to. Where'd you go? Where did you go? Where did you go from Cotton Eye Joe? Okay, and we're just gonna. Oh, this. Wait, seriously, where's my image for Ogerpon? Oh, sorry. The Ogerpon image apparently is super tiny. Hold on. There it is. That's like really small. I've never had that happen. I've had it be really big before and I had to shrink it down. Never had anything that small before. So yeah, hindsight being 2020, I think I would probably switch it over to Ogerpon. So there you go. But I did go with Weavile first. Now the reason I did that, the reason I think it's okay to switch it out is because of the remaining 2 Pokemon I have on the list. But fourth, we have for Wisdom and a little bit of Water Manipulation, which also exists because there's sub-elements as well. I chose to go with Slowking. It is a Pokemon that gives off a level of insight, level of wisdom, level of thoughtful thinking and caring. It is a kind Pokemon as well, peaceful Pokemon, generally speaking. So I do like the idea of Slowking representing that. Beyond that, though, when we represent the elemental manipulation, that I knew I needed dual types for. Because we have ice, lightning, fire, and earth. So I'm like, okay, what combination do we have there? I can do either electric fire, electric ice, or electric rock or ground. Unfortunately, there aren't good options in most of those. And then with with fire, I can do again fire, electric, fire, ice, or fire, rock, or ground. Then with ground, you get the point. So I'm like, okay, let me figure this out. I ultimately went with one I haven't used yet, Arctozolt for electric ice because lightning and thunder, lightning, and ice. It's along with Rotom Freeze, I believe it is, are the only 2 ice electric types that exist right now. We definitely need more of these types. These very obscure types. We need some more like regular Mon for them instead of just these one-offs. So I went that route because I felt that was the most appropriate if trying to use electric. Because if I had gone, say, ice and fire, the only thing is Galarian Darmanitan, and only its Zen form. So right at and that means I would have had to use electric, rock, or ground. If I had gone electric and or ice and ground, well then I got to find a fire electric type, and the only one that exists right now, I believe, is the Rotom Heat. So that kind of I knew it had to have been Arctic Salt because that means I was free to do either fire ground or fire rock for the final one, which gave me a lot more options, which leads us to Arcanine Hisuian form for that. It's based a lot more off like a Chinese food dog compared to the original Arcanine, and it's a fire rock type. So I think that just works out better overall. And because Ninjago is based on, I believe, well, not based, but has, Chinese Asian inspiration, it makes the most sense to go that route. So again, starter was Kommo-o, shiny. Altaria represents the Golden Dragon. Ogerpon to represent his Oni side. Slowpoke to represent his wisdom, thoughtfulness, and water manipulation as well. And you have Arctozolt and Hisuian Arcanine to represent the manipulation of lightning and lightning and ice and fire and earth, respectively. Now, as always, I am asked the question, how balanced is this team? And the correct answer to that is it's a team that isn't going to get cleaved by a lot, but I will say, now that I added the Ogerpon there and took out the grass, it does lose a lot of weaknesses here, because grass is weak to bug, fire, and ice, I believe it also has flying as a weakness too, if I remember correctly. So you'll have to just give me a moment because changing it on the spot means I now have to relook at the balancing act I did for the team. So if you'll just give me 1 second as I pull a pen now from somewhere and write this information down, so I'm not like just getting no, not that one either. Here we go. Just double checking grass's weaknesses real quick here. Grass is weak to fire. It's weak to ice. It's weak to flying. It's weak to bug. So yeah, Ogerpon, grass. So yeah, we're looking at fire, ice, bug, and flying. So the question is, how much has everything gone down at this point in terms of the damage it takes, the damage this whole team takes? Well, the good news is, that everything actually is kind of gone down pretty hard. In fact, most of this hasn't really changed all that now that I'm really looking at it. The only difference is we've now added one extra weakness to flying and one extra weakness to ice. If I got that, yeah, that's really it. And this actually helps us strengthen the team up because it gets rid of a couple weaknesses that were really on display. Particularly fighting and rock and fairy all went down. Fire, rock, and fairy all went down a bit in terms of the damage they were inflicting on the team. The biggest issues this team faces is fighting and rock and fairy. Those are like the three big ones. And this comes down to the fact that you have literally, the fairy's even down by down to 2 now. That's right, fairy's down to 2 because there's no longer the dark type. So actually, the biggest weaknesses this team has, and it definitely has several weaknesses. 2 weaknesses to ice for 2 dragons. Actually, 3 weaknesses to ice now. So actually, the ice did go up. So 3 weaknesses. Half the team is weak to ice. 2 weaknesses to dragon, 2 weaknesses to ground, 2 weaknesses to fire and bug. Your big 3, and 2 weaknesses to fairy. Your big 3 are going to be rock, which Hisuian, Arcanine is still weak to, Arctozolt is still weak to, and Altaria is still weak to. Yeah, fighting, which again, rock, fire type, going to be weak. Ice type, going to be weak. Other than that, though, actually, the fighting type went down as well. Yeah, why did no, so fighting is also weakened. And, yeah, ice. Half the team does just get pummeled by ice. This is assuming you're not giving a mask to Ogerpon, which I would treat as no. As for how balanced the team is in terms of can it become champion, I'm not going to bury the lead here. Yes. This team honestly can become champion in no joke. All of the regions except for maybe one. So real quick, because and it all comes down to the fact that Komo-O, or Jangmo-O in this case, is your starter. The first 3 gyms have no moves that are good against dragon types. And he's going to straight up resist a bunch of those starting gyms as well. Brock, he's going to have no problem with, and then Misty, he'll have no problem with. Honestly, there's no gym in Kanto that is a problem for Komo-O, save for a little bit of Sabrina because he is fighting type, but that's kind of it. So Komo-O alone could get you through all the gyms no problem. And by the time you get to the Elite Four, you have the full lineup. So even though Komo-O is weak to ice, its fighting type actually helps counteract some of that ice weakness and gives some strength over ice. Not to mention the fact they still have fire rock type that should be able to handle the ice. Bruno is not going to be any real big problem. Neither is Agatha. And Lance, even though he has dragon types, Komo-O is honestly kind of leagues beyond Gen 1 dragon. Like, the only real dragon type he has is dragon. I think he has a Dragonair. If I remember, because team correctly, he has like Dragonites, a Gyarados, Aerodactyl, and Charizard, I think. Or a Dragonair on the team, I believe. I can't remember exactly who he has on the team. But I know that Komo-O is honestly going to get you through a lot of those guys. And then it just comes down to beating Blue, and you should be able to beat Blue because this team is far more advanced than, when I say advanced, I don't mean like, oh, all these Pokemon just because they came from later gens are better. No, but you have a legendary on your team now with Ogerpon, which severely helps. And you have a pseudo-legendary, plus you have pretty much coverage for all of his types. You really do. Because you have 2 dragons, you have a fighting type, you have a flying type, you have a grass type, a water psychic, electric, ice, and a rock fire. You literally have 10, 11, you have 12 types on this team. Like, that's no small feat. That is no small feat at all. Because honestly, do you have 12 types on this team? That can't be right. Because the bottom 6, that's 6 types right there. Sorry. You have 8 types on this team. No, 9 types. 9 types on this team. So yeah, you have 9 types on this team. 10 types. Why am I getting my math wrong today? You have 10 types on this team. That's impressive. And that gives you just as much coverage and variety as he has. Plus, Dragon is overly strong in Gen 1. In Gen 2, you also don't have a problem. If anything, you have an easier time in Gen 2 than you do even in Gen 1. Again, Jangmo handles Faulkner no problem. It should handle Bugsy no problem, plus you'll have a flying type. Now that we're adding Ogerpon into the mix, which generally speaking, I try to say for, last the legendary, but I made a swap out here. You should be able to have a milk tank. By the time you get to the 4th gym, you're already going to be able to have Slow King. You can have basically at level 1 if you wanted the Slow King. So you should be able to handle Morty no problem. You should be able to handle Chuck, Jasmine. Price is one that will give you a little bit of problems just because of the ice type against the dragons. But at that point, you have a full team, so it's not that big a deal. And Claire would also give you a little bit of problems, but you have an ice type on the team, and you still have 2 almost fully evolved dragons. One is a fully evolved dragon. Como would just be on the cusp. And then the Elite 4 really wouldn't be that big of an issue either. Will, you should have no problem with. Koga's not that big a deal. Bruno, again, is not that big a deal. You should be able to cleave through Lucian, the Dark-type Elite 4 member. And again, even though the team is better in Gen 2 than you get in Gen 1, you should be able to take Lance no problem. Once again, you should have no problem in Gen 3. Let me put it this way. Let me get to the point where you might have a problem in all these regions. I think that's going to help speed this along very quickly. And honestly, the point where you may have a problem does not hit, honestly, until you get to the Elite 4. And even then, the only issue you're really going to be struggling with is Steven. Like, you should be able to get through the Elite 4 without any real difficulty. Because you got a Dark-type gym leader who's also got like a Cacturn Shiftry on his team, which means you don't even need to use your fighting dragon type. You can use Arcanine for that. Then you got a Ghost-type team, which there's nothing here that's overly strong against Ghosts, but your team is more than equipped to handle it. The Ice-type team is going to be mildly problematic for the dragons, but again, Arcanine being a rock and a fire type should be able to handle them no problem. Arctozolt should be able to handle things like the Wall Rain without issue, so you should be fine there. The Drake is problematic a little bit, but you also have Dragon and Ice, so should be no problem. Steven's the one problem here. Arcanine is only going to be able to do so much damage because being fire is great, but being rock is harmful, so it's kind of neutral to steel. And he's also got like a Clay Doll on the team, which is not good. You do have Ice and Grass to kind of compensate for that. He's also going to be setting up things like spikes or toxic. So you will have to work. I don't see, for example, Arcanine going at being taken out first or going first, but being swapped in and eventually being taken out. But you again still have enough coverage for the rock and bug type, the rock and ground type, and rock and grass type, and the ground and psychic type. And then you have the 2 to 3 steel types with a fighting dragon and a fire rock and a little bit of ice and grass for coverage. You should be able to get through it. And water with the Slowking. Then Sinnoh, you should be able to become champion here. Once again, you should have no problems with the first several gyms. As a matter of fact, once again, the gym that's going to give you some problems later down the road, really, is none of them. None of these gyms are going to be giving you any real problems whatsoever. Because at the point you get to each of these gyms, like Crash or Wake, for example, you'll already have a powerful legendary grass type, even at low level. You'll have a fully evolved Altaria at that point, or close to it. You'll have a Slowking. You'll have Como. You'll have a Hakmo, I believe, or close to it. So, yeah, Wagner is going to give you a little problem. Like, for example, Altaria and Slowking aren't going to be doing well, but you have enough coverage to help you there. The Elite 4, you've got Ice, Grass, and Water, so the ground type Elite 4 members done. You got a Fire and Flying type to deal with the Bug type. You got, you don't really have a really good answer for Flint, because Flint supposedly is a fire user, but only has 2 actual fire types. But because of that, it actually means his Steelix and his Lopunny are going to go down hard to Como. Drifloon, you can easily just pull out any one of the number of these guys, Arcanine with a rock move, whatever. Then you get the Psychic type gym Elite 4 member. Shouldn't be a big problem. Como is not going to do very well, but you got enough high-level guys here that you should be able to handle it without too much difficulty. Cynthia is definitely going to be the most challenging one. You don't have a good answer for Spiritomb on this team. So starting out with Como is not the best strategy, and Slowking's not a good choice either. So you may end up losing a team member dealing with Spiritomb. But beyond Spiritomb, though, you actually aren't that bad off against her team. Garchomp, you have several answers for Garchomp, ironically, with Como and Altaria um, and Arctozolt, particularly Arctozolt, again, having ×4 effective attacks. Milotic, you've got grass types on your team for that. Same with Gastrodon. Lucario, you've got fire types and fighting types, so you should be good there. And I'm trying to remember what the last one. Oh, Roserade, you have a fire type, so an ice type. So you should be able to handle Cynthia, but she is a bit trickier. Iris. The one issue in Unova that you're going to have against Iris is Elise. No matter which version you're going with, I keep saying Iris, Unova, is Elise, the electric type gym leader. You should have 4 Mon at that point, but the problem is those Emolgas are horrifyingly strong. That Aerial Ace will make mincemeat of Ogerpon and Como-O. Slowking should be able to help cover you, but it's a water electric type. So the only thing you have on the team that is... Actually, yeah, this entire team could get bodied by the Emolga alone if you're not careful. But that said, if you can get past that, you should actually just have a clean sweep the whole region. Even going against Iris, who is mostly a dragon type user, because you have 2 dragons and an ice type, you should be fine. Alder is a lot more varied, but you have a fire type to deal with the bug type, you have a fighting type to deal with the Buffalont, dragon type and ice type to deal with the Durant. You don't really have a solid answer for Volcarona except for Hisuian Arcanine and maybe Slowking, but either way, you should be able to become the Elite Four, the champion of Unova. Kalos, that's another one. Honestly, Kalos' big problem right at the gate is Grant. Level 25 Tyrantron and Amoros, and you'd only have Altaria and Jangmo-O at that point. Yeah, that's a problem. That is a legitimate problem. Fortunately, Tyrant doesn't actually have any Dragon-type moves, so you should be okay. You should be able to take them down. Whereas Jangmo-O would have Dragon-type moves. After that, though, everything else is kind of a clean sweep. None of the Elite Four members are going to give you any real problems, and while the champion Diantha is difficult, she's not impossible. She starts with Hawlucha. You would probably want to swap out of that and go with something like Slowking. Take that out, and then you just be kind of swapping in and out. You should be able to become champion there as well. I'm going to skip to Paldea real quick. You should honestly have no issues with Paldea here at all. You'll have the type advantage once you get... You'll have a strong enough Mon to deal with the Bug-type gym leader. Type advantage over the Grass-type gym leader. Ogerpon means that you should be able to handle Iona, who's ironically a big stopgap in Paldea. Because you basically create a Pokemon with no weakness in that damn Mismagius with Levitate. And like all the gyms should be easy, honestly, at that point, because you're going to keep adding on. Your Elite Four challenges will be mildly difficult, but again, Slowking and Arctozolt should be able to get you through, and Ogerpon now should be able to get you through with a ground type Elite Four member. Steel type should be easily handled by Como-O and Hisuian Arcanine. The flying type should be handled by Arctozolt and Arcanine as well. The Dragon type gym, that one, or Elite Four member, that's going to be a little bit more difficult, but you have 2 dragons and an ice type, should be no problem. And honestly, Gita is just such a disappointment as a champion, so you should be able to handle her no problem. You'll notice, though, I skipped one. Because if there's one region where you might not be able to become champion, it's Galar. Now, why do I say this? Because, honestly, the gyms themselves, not that big of an issue. You should be able to get through the gym challenge actually pretty easily. It's dealing with Leon. It's dealing with Leon. That's the issue. His team is tough. Depending on which version of his team you're actually dealing with. In 1 second, let me again find his team right here. Gym leaders, Champion Cup. That's what I want. I want Champion Cup. Champion Cup. All right. Champion Cup. So yeah, his now let me be very clear too. You can almost certainly get through all of the opponents, like the semifinals. You should be able to get through Marnie, no problem. You should be able to get through Hop, no problem. You should be able to get through BD no problem, Nessa no problem, B or Alistair shouldn't be that big of a difficulty, and Raihan should not be that big of a difficulty. The issue is going to be Lance. The biggest change, because it's all going to depend on what team you're going up against Lance with. Aegislash, you should be able to deal with Aegislash with a Hisuian Arcanine. Dragapult, however, is a speed monster. It is among the fastest Pokemon in the entire damn game, and you need Dragon Tech. The only thing you have on this team, that can do anything, is Altaria and Komao. Maybe you can teach a Dark type move to Arcanine, but that's it. And even then, you're probably not taking this thing down in one hit. You're going to lose some on this guy. And then he has the freaking Haxorus, which, while not a pseudo, probably should have been. It's got such bonkers attack. And it has Poison Jab, Iron Tail, Earthquake, Outrage. Like, this thing's a beast and a menace. Then it all depends on which starter he took. Because one of his teams is Seismitoad, which honestly you should have no problem with Ogerpon. He has Cinderace, you should be able to handle with Slowking, no problem. And then that Charizard, assuming you got your guys left, is going to be a bit problematic. Because that is a powerful-ass Charizard. But if he chose Inteleon, well, now he's got an Inteleon, which you have an Arctozolt for, assuming it's still around. Mr. Rhyme, which you should still have Hisuian Arcanine for, hopefully. And then if he chose Rillaboom, well, Rillaboom, you have Hisuian Arcanine, but being in a Rock type means take your chances on that. So you have Arctozolt too, but Rillaboom could honestly beat it with high horsepower, which... and then he also has Rhyperior, which again, Ogerpon should be able to deal with it. But that's assuming he's still got Ogerpon after dealing with the gauntlet of the first three. The Aegislash shouldn't be a problem. It's the Dragapult and the Haxorus that are going to be extremely problematic to deal with. So, can you beat Leon? I think the answer is yes, but it is not going to be easy. That is going to be the one that you may not be able to beat. Otherwise, this team can clear almost every one of the regions to date. So, in my opinion, that's the Pokemon team for the first Spinjitzu Master, whatever. I'll remember to look up the name. Hold on. The first Ninjago Spinjitzu Master. Anyway, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Later.